Welcome to the latest and greatest EANGUS Podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm Scott Bousum, one of the legislative directors of the association.
And I'm Frank Yoakum, the executive director for EANGUS.
We're coming to you from Frank's office here at our national headquarters in Washington, D.C. Today is June 5th, 2019, so any information you hear is subject to change. If you haven't done so already, please go on to the App Store and subscribe to this podcast. That would really help us out. We're trying to garner some advertising and sponsorships, and so that would be very helpful. Frank, I'm going to kick it over to you. I think you have a bit of an update, some positive news to share. Tuition assistance.
Oh, yes. I'm not going to give you a lot of details, but the Air National Guard has told us that they are interested in starting to pay federal tuition assistance dollars to Air National Guardsmen. And for you that are in the Air Guard and that's a sore subject, we've been trying to champion that for you. We do have news that that's going to happen soon. I don't have a definition of the word soon, but it's supposed to happen soon, and they're going to beta test it in a few states to begin with, and then after the beta test, they're going to go live with it nationwide. And so look for future broadcasts here and future podcasts where we talk about exactly what's going to happen with the Air Guard, but I'm not going to reveal a lot of details at this point in time.
Understood. Well, as I had said, with it being June, and those of you who are familiar with our podcasts and updates in the national office know that this is a busy time of year with Congress considering the National Defense Authorization Act. Both the House and the Senate, respectively, are moving their own bills, and then they will come together later this year to conference those differences. Right now, I'll just give a quick update that the Senate Armed Services Committee has marked their bill, but of course they do everything behind closed doors, and the bill is embargoed for a few weeks. And so some small details have come out in the press, or just just kind of tidbits from personal office staffers who were in the room, but nothing really big in our lane to share. So
although they kind of got out ahead of the House, didn't they?
They did. This is very different this year because the House flipped, and because of floor schedules, the Senate actually went first. They embargoed their bill.
Yeah, so we can't see it.
So the House can't really benefit from seeing the other work that gets done, and we haven't seen anything. The House will consider, the House Armed Services Committee will mark up their legislation next week. A couple of things we've seen from some of the subcommittee marks. We have some language that's not exactly what we pushed here at the national office regarding the creation of a comprehensive, holistic DD-214 document to track members' statuses and benefits throughout the life cycle of their career. But they did include language directing the department to look at making improvements to the way they track and monitor those things throughout a career, and it could result in what we had envisioned being a comprehensive DD-214 document, or it could be some iteration of that. So we'll see. There's another TRICARE Reserve Select study. We've had issues that we've been communicating for a number of years, both in hearing testimony and then obviously informally in meetings.
But they're kind of both looking at expanding it to federal employees and then also TRICARE for all currently serving members at no cost.
That is something.
So that study is going to kind of cover both those, isn't it?
That's what I'm understanding. That's something that the latter part that you mentioned is something the adjutant generals have been pushing, and that NAUGUS, our cohorts downstairs at NAUGUS, have been discussing. And so we'll see. We'll see what comes out of that study. That'll probably take the better part of a year. It's typically the way those mandated studies go. So on the bright side, as far as the expanding the federal employees who are eligible, the Department of Defense continues to push it over, including the 12304B early retirement. They continue to push it over in their legislative proposals packages, but as probably listeners are well aware, me saying many times is mandatory spending offsets are difficult to come by, and that's where we tend to have some friction. But I will always remind folks that Congressman Kelly, being the ranking member on the Personnel Subcommittee, he's obviously a member of the National Guard himself, and is a big champion. Although his jurisdiction, he has to consider everything, all components, all services, family members, all that, but he's obviously very knowledgeable about the issue, and it continues to be a big priority of his. So once we find some mandatory offsets, I would imagine that Congressman Kelly will be very influential in getting that done.
And typically in DC, report language in 1 year precedes legislative language the following year. It can. Generally, that's what happens. Doesn't mean that in this case it's going to happen that way, but generally what happens is that you get a report 1 year and the following year there's legislative language.
Exactly. So I'll kind of close my little NDA update. We are working to get the student identifier expanded to include the children or reserve component service members. That's been an ongoing effort, and we're working with a coalition with the Military Child Education Coalition that's here co-located with us, and hopefully we see some positive movement on that as the bill moves to the floor of the House and the Senate, respectively.
That's like a no-brainer because there's no cost to that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just language change.
It's just language change. Yep.
That should be easy.
Yeah. So do you want to give a Transition Act update?
Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about the Mission Act. Tomorrow. This is the 6th, and that's the day they're rolling out the Mission Act. It was signed into law the 6th of last year by the President, and the Mission Act kind of expands community access for VA. And if you were like me, I got my letter in the mail. It talks about my enhanced VA options here under the Mission Act, and it came with a brochure, and hopefully you got the brochure and the letter in the mail as well. Today there was a message that came out from the Secretary of VA, Robert Wilkie. We actually met in his offices last week personally with him, and this came out this week. This week he says about the Mission Act that they listened to veterans and heard that they had preferred standards on drive times rather than mileage. Because sometimes, even though it might only be 5 miles, so welcome to DC.
Right.
Something's 5 miles, but it takes you an hour and a half to get there. So they're listening to people who talk to them and said that the average drive time now for VA primary or mental health care or non-institutional extended services is 30 minutes of drive time instead of the mileage requirement. And for specialty care, the drive time standard is going to be 60 minutes. And so if you got to spend 60 minutes in traffic, and in some of our higher populated areas like DC or Los Angeles or New York or Miami or whatever, it might take longer to get there. These are based on drive times now, not based on mileage. And also, the VA patients are facing, if they're facing 20 days or more of wait time for primary or mental health care or non-institutional extended care, they'll have the option of choosing a community provider that will deliver that care faster, or if specialty care, the wait time standard is 28 days. In other words, if you can't get an appointment with a VA doctor for some of this care 20 days and the specialty care 28 days, then you can go out into the community and get care there, and there'll be more information about how to do that on their website. Also, veterans will have access to urgent care, walk-in care that gives them the choice to receive certain services at community clinics. There may be a copay with that too, but it opens up the urgent care clinics to VA beneficiaries as well, and not having to go down to a VA hospital for any kind of an urgent care thing. More to follow on this. It's being rolled out tomorrow. Go out to va.gov or watch your email inbox and see the information that's coming out. But we were part of that Mission Act signing ceremony last year in the Rose Garden of the White House, and we support the VA on expanding community care for our veterans.
Excellent. We're all getting very excited for the conference. It's only 2 months away. Do you have any updates for our conference here in Des Moines?
Just a couple teasers. If you've been to our conferences, you kind of know what we do there and have a great time there. We have good speakers. If you haven't been to our conferences, you need to come. This year we have 2 that we've invited that we're excited about. One has confirmed. Secretary Wilkie from the VA, I personally invited him last week to come to our conference. He has tentatively accepted. We're waiting for official confirmation on that, but he's tentatively accepted to come and speak to us. We'll iron out which day he's going to talk. I kind of offered up Tuesday morning or Tuesday or Wednesday as the 2 dates. The chief's probably going to speak to us on Monday along with Sergeant Major Kepner. It looks like this year we're also going to have the SEAC, the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Sergeant Major John Wayne Troxell. He's already RSVP'd. He's going to be there. So Monday morning, late Monday morning, he's going to be speaking. Tuesday morning, first thing, Jimmy Stewart's going to be there. No, not the actor Jimmy Stewart, but the general, retired Jimmy Stewart from the Army Reserve. He's the, boy, I got to get this right. He's the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, but he's performing the duties of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. And so he's the top guy for personnel. And he's already accepted. He's coming to our conference. He's going to speak on Tuesday morning. And then hopefully we'll have the head of VA speaking to us as well. So we've got a good lineup of really talented speakers that are coming. You need to be there for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. A quick little reminder, I mentioned it up front, please subscribe. Go into the App Store and subscribe. That really helps us out. And we'll be back shortly to provide another update. So thanks again.
Thank you.